An interracial relationship can be defined as cohabitation, sexual relations, marriage, or interbreeding involving persons of different races. Challenges of an interracial relationship include rejection by one's own community, isolation from family and friends, public criticism and judgment, and disagreements about whose values and beliefs are more important. Benefits of an interracial relationship include gaining new insight on other cultures or religions, being exposed to other ways of thinking, being exposed to other countries, cultures, and traditions, and possibly learning a new language. Interracial marriage was not always acceptable. It's one of Americans' greatest paradox that no matter how diverse we become, the discomfort people feel when talking about race is never appeased. In most parts of the country, you will see countless mixed race couples, and yet the complicated nature of our country's sordid racial past means many people still have the initial knee-jerk reaction to seeing an interracial couple. Love may not know color, but society sure does. In the 1950s, mixed marriages between African Americans and whites were banned in most states.
Prior to the 1967 United States Supreme Court case of Loving v. Virginia, many states had laws that banned the intermarriages of whites with blacks or other minorities. The Supreme Court struck down with the last of these statutes in the 1967 case of Mildred and Richard Loving, a black woman and a white man who were arrested and banished from Virginia for the crime of being married. On June 12, 1967, the nation's Supreme Court voted unanimously to overturn the conviction of Richard and Mildred Loving, a young interracial couple who were sentenced to a year in jail for being an interracial couple living in Virginia. That decision struck down the miscegenation laws written to prevent the mixing of the races. Since then, the number of interracial marriages has increased and attitudes of society has shifted. The dismissal of the ban put interracial marriages on the map. According to the Pew Research Center in 2010, approximately 15% of all new marriages in the United States were between spouses of a different race or ethnicity from their spouse. Among the newlyweds in 2010, 9% of whites, 17% of blacks, 26% of Hispanics, and 28% of Asians married outside their race. Most recently, out of the 3.6 million adults who got married in 2013, 58% of American Indians, 28% of Asians, 19% of blacks, and 7% of whites have spouses whose race was different from their own. It was discovered that African American men are more likely to marry out than black women. Fully, a quarter of black men who got married in 2013 married someone who was not black.
Only 12% of black women married outside of their race. Unsurprisingly, Americans over the age of 65 and residents of the South are least likely to support a racially mixed family. Oh well, they would just have to get over the fact that there are over 5 million interracially married couples in the United States, according to the latest census data. That's 9.5% of all married Americans. Hispanic and whites are the most common amongst interracial marriages. Whites and Hispanics make up about 30% of all these marriages. Whites and Asians make up about 13.7%, followed by whites and blacks with 7.9%. We think that's because relationships are more likely to be interracial the more recently they were formed, so younger people are more likely to have interracial relationships. This trend reflects the increasing acceptance of interracial relationships in today's society. All views of interracial marriages must be taken in light of current worldview of interracial relationships. There is both increased tension and greater openness in today's society. People are more likely to engage in activities that cross racial and ethnic boundaries. However, there also continues to be a prejudice and fear about racial ethnic groups with whom many people have little contact. Nevertheless, when people strive to understand the traditions, values, and beliefs that are prevalent to many groups that make up our global societies, then they are more likely to work together for the good of all.
Just last Friday, Old Navy posted a picture of an interracial couple on Twitter advertising an upcoming sale, and the backlash was astounding. Hashtags such as Boycott Old Navy and White Genocide surfaced almost immediately, but there were more people in support of the ad posting pictures of their own interracial families. This goes to show that while we have made great strides in the war against race and prejudices, society still hasn't fully accepted interracial relationships. There are positives and negatives in all relationships. No matter race, religion, ethnicity, boy or girl, we should all be able to be with who makes us happy, and the only thing that matters in the end is whether or not you are content with the lifestyle you have chosen to live.